Hello. Thank you for volunteering for the academic decathlon, and thank you for taking a few moments to view this in advance training video. Please note that prior to our actual competition, we will have a question and answer session that you can go through things in more detail. The intent of having this training video, as well as the printed instructions in advance, is to give everyone an idea of how this virtual competition will flow. If this were a physical competition, many of you know this, you would show up at a school, you would be assigned to a particular classroom, you would physically be seated, students would walk in the door, they would either go through their speech process or an interview, you would fill out a paper ballot, send it on its way, and the next student would come in. Obviously, this is a tough year for that to happen, so we are using the Zoom video conference platform to assist with both speech and interview. This is fundamentally how it will flow. As a judge, you have access to a link. The link should have been emailed to you or some other method delivered the Zoom link to you. There is one Zoom link for speech and another Zoom link for interview. When you join that link, ultimately you will be assigned to a breakout room within Zoom. So you will join the link. We will go through a short Q&A supplement to this training, and then you will be assigned to a breakout room. When you initially join your Zoom meeting, you will want to test your computer audio. When you join Zoom, you will have a prompt that asks you to join with audio or to test your speaker and microphone. If you click Test Speaker and Microphone, this is what you will see. You will specifically see an item that asks you if you hear a ringtone. As I hear a ringtone, I will click Yes, and now Zoom is prompting me to speak and pause. I can hear my replay, so I will simply click Yes. And now I know that I am connected to Zoom properly. I will then click Join with Computer Audio, and I am connected to my Zoom meeting. The next thing you will want to pay attention to in your Zoom meeting is the ability to control both your microphone and your camera. If you hover over your Zoom meeting window, you will see down in the lower left there is a button that says Mute, and there is a button that either says Start or Stop Video. If I click the mute button, it turns off my microphone. As a speech judge, you will likely want to keep your microphone muted while the student is speaking. As an interview judge, you will want to keep your microphone on, as that is a fundamental premise of interviewing. When you arrive in the Zoom meeting room, you may already be named. If you've used Zoom previously, you're likely to be named with your prior Zoom name. If you have a Zoom account, you are likely to be named with that Zoom account name. Or if you are using a corporate computer or someone else's machine, you may be named with whatever the login criteria is for that particular machine. Regardless of how you are named when you come into Zoom, we do ask that you rename yourself to reflect your room number and your judge number. There are a variety of ways that you can do this. One of which is in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, where you may see the mute button and the video buttons, your name may appear. If you click your name or you right-click your name, depending upon your configuration, it will bring up a window that says Rename. If you choose Rename, it will bring up a small window that simply asks you to enter a new screen name. And in this instance, our judge is going to be named Interview Room 1, IN1, Judge 1, and our judge's name is Brian. If Brian clicks OK, he will be labeled in that meeting as Interview 1, Judge 1, Brian. A second way you can rename yourself, if you happen to be in a meeting with other individuals, you will see individual views of your photos. Hover over your photo, click the three dots or the ellipsis, as some people refer to it, choose the option that says Rename, and it brings you to the same rename window.
Now, in this instance, interview room 2, judge 2, and Naira has renamed herself to reflect being a judge in interview room 2 and judge number 2. Once all of your judges have renamed themselves, this is the way it will appear in a breakout room. As an example, interview room 1 has our student 8884 Riley, our judges Brian and Nicole, who have named themselves, and interview room 2 has our student Heather and our judges Suresh and Naira. When you are in the main meeting room, you will ultimately receive an invite to go to a breakout room. This will be something fairly simple. A pop-up will appear asking you to join the breakout room with the wording that it is inviting you to join a particular room, should match up to the room you've been assigned to. When you click join, you will be transferred to a breakout room.
Please don't leave the virtual room. There are breaks built into the schedule. Please leave yourself logged in, but don't leave the virtual room. You may leave the physical room wherever you are, but don't leave your virtual room.
And finally, when it is time for the student to exit the breakout room, the student will click Leave Meeting. It will typically bring them a pop-up that says Leave Meeting or Leave Breakout Room. It is important that they choose Leave Meeting. If they leave the breakout room, they will go back to the main meeting room, which is not a huge crisis. However, the meeting facilitator will then simply tell them to leave meeting. So remind your students when they are done with their interview or their speech, click the button that says Leave Meeting. If they are prompted a second time, choose Leave Meeting. As a judge, when you are complete, if you wish to return to the main meeting room following all speeches, you can click Leave Breakout Room. If you desire to simply leave without returning to the main meeting room, again, you can also choose Leave Meeting.
When you are in the interview room, it is important to understand the different views that you can have in place. This is an example of a gallery view. When you are in the Zoom meeting room, in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a toggle that either says Speaker View or Gallery View. In a gallery view, all participants receive the same amount of screen real estate. So here, our student Riley, our judge Brian, and our judge Nicole all have equal sized windows. If I click the view that says Speaker View, I will see that whoever is talking, in this case the student, has a larger amount of real estate than the judges. In an interview setting, if you are on Speaker View, whoever is speaking will get the larger amount of real estate. It is recommended that we do use Speaker View, so when the student is speaking, they will be much more visible to the judges than in a gallery view. With that said, if you and your fellow judge are more comfortable with the gallery view, that is also an acceptable means to proceed. The important thing here is the view is consistent from student to student.
And before we move on to additional topics about the tournament itself, there is an additional item for you to be aware of related to the breakout room. In every breakout room, at the bottom of the screen, there is a question mark, an Ask for Help icon. If you click the Ask for Help icon, the host of the main room will be notified and will either visit your room personally or have one of the tech support individuals join your meeting to help you resolve connection issues, short staffing, or any other dilemma.
And now let us take a moment to look at the interview evaluation form. This is something that each judge will prepare for each student as they come through the room. This is prepared in two distinct steps. The first is prior to the student arriving or immediately after the student arrives. You will populate your email. For purposes of this demonstration, I will use sample@usad.org. You will click the radio button for your appropriate interview room. In this instance, I'm judging in interview room 1. I will put in my name, Neil Sample, for this purpose, and I am judge number 1 in room 1. With those radio buttons populated, when the student arrives, they will confirm their student number with you. They may introduce themselves by name, but as a judge, what you truly care about is their number. I will populate this sample ballot with student 9998 to ensure that it is clearly showing as a sample ballot. I will click next, and it brings me to the actual interview evaluation form. As a judge, you will go through the interview process. When the interview process is complete and the student has left the room, you will then go through and populate the evaluation form. It is not the intent of this training video to tell you how to choose a number. It is the intent of this training video to show you the logistics of populating that number. The judging criteria will be covered in your in-person virtual judge training. So for purposes of this sample exercise, I will just choose sequential numbers, again, to show that this is purely a sample ballot. I will populate each of those radio buttons. And when I am complete, there is the opportunity to provide comments. Please note that these comments do not go to the student. They go to the tournament organizers. For purposes of this activity, I have no comments. I click submit, and this may happen. To ensure you are not a robot randomly submitting Google Forms, you may see this recapture functionality appear. It may ask you to identify traffic lights, crosswalks, parking meters, staircases, chimneys, bicycles, or a variety of other items. Simply click on the squares that you are prompted to, click verify, and your form will be submitted. In rare instances, you may have to go through the click on pictures activity twice for a single form to be submitted. When my form is submitted, you'll notice I'm prompted to submit another response. If I click that, it brings me to my next opportunity to submit a ballot or an evaluation form for another student.
Now that we have joined Zoom, we've taken care of the logistics of renaming and audio and video. Let's take a look at how a sample competition or a sample interview session would flow. A student will show up, the judges will greet them, the judges will go through their Q&A with the student, and it will look something like this. Now that was a relatively fast-forward interview session, giving you a flavor of bouncing back and forth between judges and student. We do ask that interviews are approximately 7 minutes long. This is not a scenario where you are timing, and if you reach 7 minutes, you cut the student off mid-speech, but please be aware of the 7-minute guideline. If you cross over 7 minutes and the student has wrapped up an answer, it is a good logical time to end that interview. If you are approaching 6:50 and the student has just wrapped up an answer, perhaps that is also a good time to wrap up the interview. Again, 7 minutes as a guideline, logically end the interview. Again, thank you for joining, thank you for watching this preview video, and thank you for supporting our students.